Hello, welcome to episode 172B of the How to Survive podcast. Next door in A lives Suspiria 1977 by Dario Argento, but here we're at home with Luca Guadagnino.
Yeah.
Guadagnino. Yep, Luca Guadagnino's 2018 version of the same film.
Cover version, he says.
Is that what he says? What? I thought I said that.
No.
Obviously, he's read my blog. So we saw it, didn't we?
We did.
At the cinema. It was good.
Yes.
Good time had by all. More on that shortly. But if you haven't seen it, then you need to go to the cinema and see it because we're going to spoil it. And it is significantly different from the Dario Argento original.
Yeah. If you've seen the first one and you're like, well, I'm not sure if I should bother going to see this one and I know the story already, you don't quite know.
You know
exactly
the characters' names, sort of.
Yeah. Most of them.
It's
some things are the same. A lot of things are different.
A significant portion of it's different.
Yeah.
It's a very good remake, and the basis that a lot is actually remade from scratch, I think.
Right. Okay.
But more on that later. We're going to recap the plot for anyone who hasn't seen it, or if you're listening to this in the year like 2800, some sort of podcast archivist.
Yeah.
You may need to have a recap of the plot.
Yes. Yeah. Imagine if all films were destroyed and all that was left were our plot recaps of the films.
Well, good thing this one's so detailed.
Daddy, what were films? Well, according to the How to Survive podcasts, they were stories that required just a nauseating level of smug analysis.
Beginning, she gave me things. Perfect balance, perfect sleep. Oh, she wants to get inside of me. I can feel her. Oh, she can see me.
When you dance the dance of another, you make yourself in the image of its creator.
I feel like I'm not even here yet.
Madame Blank's incredible.
1, 2, 3.
The way she transmits her work.
You have to decide, what is it you want to be for this company?
There's more in that building than what you can see, Doctor.
You're living with dangerous people. Three mothers, pre-God, pre-devil. Mother Tenebrarum, Mother Lacrimarum, and Mother Suspiriorum. Darkness, tears, and sighs.
You're making some kind of deal with them. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right, the plot of it. Susie.
It. That was ages ago, Joe. We're covering Suspiria.
Is it 2 this year or next year?
I don't know. A digression, but a welcome one.
A digression. A surprise for sure, but a welcome one. Susie has moved to Berlin to attend dance school, leaving behind her Mennonite family, with her mother dying of a respiratory issue. At the school, she auditions in front of the teachers, and one teacher in particular, Madame Blanc, appears to sense Susie's talent psychically. Before Susie arrived, another girl named Patricia confided in her psychologist, Dr. Klemperer, that she believed the teachers of the school to be witches.
Yeah.
And they are witches.
Yeah.
And we see a meeting where the teachers all vote on the leader of their coven, with a small majority voting for Madame Marcos, Mother Marcos, over Madame Blanc. Madame Marcos is unseen, but we get the sense that she is an ancient force who is now seeking a new host, and that one of the girls is being groomed for that purpose.
We do get a glimpse of her at one point where Susie's dancing and we see a hand reaching up to the floorboards.
Yeah, because she's in some sort of
Basement. Yeah.
weird.
Yes.
That's what I mean by it. We get the sense that that's the case, but it's not like no one says that's what we're doing.
Right. No, I mean we see Mother Marcos at one point.
Yeah. After confiding in Dr. Klemperer, Patricia disappears, leaving her schoolmates troubled and upset. One schoolmate in particular is Olga, the lead dancer in the latest production, Volk. Olga breaks down in rehearsal and storms out, leaving a space as the lead, which Susie soon fills.
And doesn't she call all the women witches as well?
As she's leaving, she's like,
Yes.
you've done something with Patricia,
Yeah.
you are all witches.
Yeah.
And the witches are not happy with that.
No.
So Madame Blanc appears to place a spell on both Susie and Olga. And when Susie begins to dance, Olga, who's in a different room, is magically compelled to carry out the same dance, which is unfortunate as the room is much smaller than the one that Susie is in, meaning that she's pummeled against the walls, breaking every bone in her limbs and ribs and pelvis, but she still continues to be drawn around until she wets herself and finally collapses, still conscious. And that is fine. Afterwards, she's carried away by other members of the school staff who drive pointed hooks through her flesh and lift her like heaped body and just carry it off.
Like luggage.
Still moaning in agony and bleeding.
Yeah.
And that is fine too.
That is all great stuff.
Meanwhile, Susie befriends Sarah, another student, and they begin looking into the missing girls. Sarah seeks the advice of Dr. Klemperer, who involves the police. But as Susie sees while prowling around the school, the police are placed under a spell and convinced that there is no issue to be had.
Mm-hmm.
Sarah works out that there is a hidden passageway inside the school, which she uncovers, finding a gigantic hidden area filled with strange relics. She overhears the teachers talking and escapes the room, taking a pointed hook with her. She delivers the pointed hook to Dr. Klemperer, who keeps it for safekeeping. He agrees to attend the performance of Volk in order to check out the school for himself. Through rehearsals, Susie and Madame Blanc have formed a deep bond, with Susie learning and accepting that Madame Blanc and the other teachers are witches, and that there may be a lot to be gained from embracing witchhood. It's now fairly apparent that the school's dances, and in particular Volk, are ritualistic spells, which need to be performed perfectly, requiring a dexterous dancer to lead and successfully execute all the steps. Mm-hmm. During the performance, which Dr. Klemperer attends, Sarah sneaks back into the hidden area and finds Patricia still alive, but bloodied, bruised, and appearing to rot away. She escapes, but the floor opens up and her leg snaps under her. A teacher places her under a spell to calm her down and places another spell on the leg to hide the wound. Sarah returns upstairs to join the dance, but soon breaks her leg again, ending the dance and the ritual.
Yeah, she's in a sort of trance, isn't she?
Yeah, but so is Susie as well.
Their eye colours swap.
It's fine, mate. That's fine. Happens all the time. The evening is cut short, and the girls and the teachers all attend a local restaurant and have a great time singing and drinking together. Madame Blanc and Susie now seem completely spiritually bonded and are able to communicate telepathically, with Susie agreeing to be part of the plan, which we still assume is that she's going to become a vessel for the still formerly unseen Madame Marcos. Dr. Klemperer, troubled by what he's seen at the dance studio, heads to his country home, where he finds his wife. This is strange because his wife has been missing for 40 years, after they were separated during an ousting of Jewish people in the early years of the war. She claims to have spent the intervening decades in exile, and they set off arm in arm. She leads him along, and lost in the emotion of it all, he realises that he's been led back to the dance school, where he is accosted by the teachers and dragged inside. Turns out that his wife was a cruel apparition. She wasn't actually there.
Yeah.
Susie returns home from dinner and changes into a slip before heading to the basement of the building to begin the ritual. In the basement, she finds the following. The school staff performing screaming incantations completely naked. The school's students, under some spell, performing a ritualistic, violent dance, completely naked. Dr. Kempler begging for mercy, completely naked. A gigantic, bulbous, slug-like woman with her flesh rotting from her body, which we take to be Madame Marcos. The three missing girls from earlier in the film, Olga, Patricia and Sarah, who are all casually being disemboweled by the school staff and alumni, seemingly without noticing. Susie is unfazed by this and tells Madame Blanc that she's ready. Madame Blanc has her doubts, having secretly been attempting to undermine the Madame Marcos reincarnation plan all along. She attempts to stop the ritual, but Madame Marcos partially decapitates her with a spell before approaching Susie to begin the transformation. Madame Marcos explains that Susie needs to telepathically kill her own mother, who is still suffering in Ohio from this breathing illness, in order to accept Madame Marcos as her new mother. Susie does so, and with that, a large monster climbs out the ground beneath them and goes around the room, killing everyone who voted for Madame Marcos in the earlier vote, as well as Madame Marcos herself, before returning to the ground. Susie reveals that she, not Madame Marcos, is Mother Suspiriorum, the leader of the coven, and the next day, business returns to normal. It's revealed that Madame Blanc survived her beheading, but the students are told that she's left the company. That's fine. If you're not keeping up, then it's your own fault.
Oh no, I'm keeping up.
In a coda, Dr. Klemperer goes home, and while in bed, clearly shaken from the events of the previous night, is visited by Susie. Susie tells him that he deserves to know the truth about his wife, which is that she died in a concentration camp, but that she died thinking of a happy memory with him. Susie then wipes his memory of all the film's major plot points and leaves, and he's left sort of shaking in bed, bewildered, much like we are.
Yes.
And that's the film.
If only I could have my memory wiped of all the film's elements.
Right, so that's Suspiria. As the Mother Suspiriorum of the How to Survive podcast. How did you find it?
Honestly, a completely bewildering experience. I think for the first 2/3, it's pretty thick with atmosphere, but not so much with tension, I guess, because of the similarities between the plot of this and the plot of the original. So you know vaguely who is going to die and when and how.
Yeah.
So it's got that sort of element of tension up until a certain point, which is basically when Susie walks in to the Coven's ceremony and we see Mother Marcos, who looks ridiculous to the point of being laughable, as do most of the undead characters, which is a bit unfortunate. Mother Marcos, played by Tilda Swinton, as is Madame Blanc, as is
Dr. Kemperer.
Dr. Klemperer, which is, in my opinion, Tilda Swinton is great as Madame Blanc. She's
generally a good presence to have in your film.
Yeah, definitely. She's a very fine actress. She should have been reined in.
Yeah.
There are plenty of interviews where people are saying, "Are you playing Dr. Klemperer?" And she says, "Absolutely, categorically not. But you're asking the wrong question." And eventually someone did ask the right question, which I think was asking her whether she's playing, is it Lutz Ebersdorf?
Right.
Which is the name of the fictional actor who plays Dr. Klemperer. And she said 100% yes. In which, and that whole exchange makes me think that it had turned into some sort of personal Tilda Swinton, acting vehicle, right? She's been in plenty of Luca Guadagnino's films before. She's in I Am Love and she's in A Bigger Splash. And I presume from that basis that they are friends. And
she's like, "Oh, yeah, can I be the old man?"
Yeah, I think I have a feeling that there might be a thematic thing, thematic reason why they chose to do this, which I'm sure we'll get to later. But I think it detracts from the film because it's actually a bit distracting.
Right. So this is what my main thought. Right. Okay. I liked it. I liked the film.
Yeah.
I think I liked the film.
Yes.
But not definitely.
That's exactly what I've written down as well. I think I liked it.
Yeah. It's one of the weirdest films I've ever seen, and it was a crazy experience the whole time.
Yeah.
You could compare it to the craziness and the feeling of exhaustion that you get from watching something like 2001: A Space Odyssey or The Shining, which is a flattering comparison because this isn't Kubrick levels, but you take my point that both have a strong sense of metaphor and surrealism, which Guadagnino is at least trying to emulate, right?
Yeah.
But there's some insane decisions, and you're right that Tilda Swinton playing the Doctor is crazy. Like it's poetry in motion for explaining the problem with the movie, which is that it doesn't make any sense, right? Certain parts of it don't make sense, and when you become aware of them, they're all you can think about.
Yeah.
And because I knew, and I think you knew as well, that Tilda Swinton played the Doctor, every time he was on screen, I'm just like, Tilda Swinton, Tilda Swinton, Tilda Swinton, Tilda Swinton.
Yeah, totally.
And you're like, it's not a convincing sell at that point, because you just like, this is Tilda Swinton doing an impression of an old man, rather than an old man.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that I think is a big problem.
It would be like if in Call Me By Your Name, if the girlfriend of Elio played Elio's dad instead of Michael Stuhlbarg. And did a fairly good impression of a 60-year-old man.
Yeah.
But you're like, this is obviously not a 60-year-old man.
And I think the way in which there's become this whole sort of press narrative about the reveal, and Tilda Swinton actually secretly playing this other role.
Yeah.
It's just a bit. I think it's all distracting. It's just distracting from the film. It's distracting from the film's themes, of which there are numerous.
Yeah.
I wish that they didn't do that, because it feels like an unnecessary sort of actorly flourish.
Yeah.
That is just distracting.
I feel like you've seen Jim and Andy, right, on Netflix.
Yeah.
This is a documentary about Jim Carrey's process in playing Andy Kaufman.
Yeah.
For the movie Man on the Moon.
Yeah, where he became Andy Kaufman and didn't come out of character for the whole duration of the shoot.
Yeah, including
the point of,
characters Andy Kaufman played.
Yeah, and ruining all of his relationships and everything. Yeah.
Right. I feel like there could be, in the years to come, a documentary about the making of this film where it's like there's just fucking crazy shit happening. Like Tilda Swinton playing all these people doesn't make an iota of sense.
Yeah.
I'd love to. When this comes out on DVD, I'm going to buy it and watch the behind the scenes just to see like what is the rationale?
Yeah.
What is the possible reason? Please explain to me, because I do not know.
Because when I knew about it going in, and I was under the assumption that at some point in the narrative there was going to be a big reveal that the psychiatrist was
Tilda Swinton, Madame Blanc.
Was Madame Blanc.
Yeah.
But there's nothing like that.
No.
Right? It makes and the opening scene is him and Patricia. And Patricia's confessing all of her secrets to him.
Yeah.
And that would have made sense, again.
Because it's like, how does Madame Blanc know all this?
Right,
Because she's actually the doctor.
Yeah.
You don't need to say that, right?
Yeah.
But they make it categorically that's not the case.
Yeah.
They're different people.
It's distracting, and it's distracting to the point that we've spent 5 minutes talking about it when there's a lot more interesting things to talk about in the film.
Right.
One other thing, just on the while we're talking about acting, I think Dakota Johnson is fantastic, and I think she's really turning into a really interesting and talented actress who makes really interesting choices that perhaps you wouldn't expect from someone who has spent the bulk of their career making 50 Shades of Grey films. So I'm really interested to see what she does next.
Yeah, I agree. She's. Do you think she was a dancer before the film or learned to dance for the film?
As far as I know, she was she trained in ballet, but this is modern dance, which she had never done before. Because it's a very distinctive style of dance, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I think, like, as a remake, for a large part of it, this could be considered like Suspiria from the point of view of the witches.
Okay.
So when you got like the planning sessions and like the votes and stuff, it's like, well, to a certain point, and like the doctor's office, these are things that are absent from the original film. Yeah. And it takes away the mystery of like, are they witches? What's really going on? Because from the outset, and you're in with them, essentially. Yeah. And there's almost nothing in common with the original, though, except for the mythology of the witches, the dance school setting, and some stylistic choices, such as the shuddering zoom, the fade transitions, and the red wash towards the end when things go fucking crazy.
Yes. I think I appreciate the lengths to which they've gone to try and distance it stylistically. And narratively from the original. So they've changed the time, the place, and the style. Because they're basically on a hiding to nothing, aren't they? If they copied the style and had everything really blown out and colourful, then they'd just be being derivative. And if they try to do their own unique style in a very pointed way, like everything is blue in this version of the film, then they're just,
it doesn't.
It'd always be held up as a pale imitation of the original. So I think they chose the right thing because the visual style that they've gone for really suits 70s Berlin in winter. I think they made the right choice.
I agree with you. I think, and it is a nice touch to have it turn red during the most intense moments of the film.
Yes,
because that is like an artistic nod to the previous one. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, like you mentioned, there's a lot of themes at play in the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one clear one, I think, is the idea of mother-daughter relationships, motherhood. There's quite a clear exploration of motherhood, and we obviously have ideas going into the film about what a mother should be.
Yeah.
And it seems that the only real maternal figure in the movie is Madame Blanc, I think.
Mm-hmm.
She really loves the students, and specifically Susie.
Yeah, Susie's own mother is shown to be pious to the point of being abusive and distant from her daughter, and refers to her at one point as
my only sin
in this world, which in actual fact, she's probably right.
Yeah,
she's probably right because she appears to have given birth to the vessel for an ancient witch. Interesting that Susie is the only one of her family with red hair. And I think in medieval times, red hair was often seen as a sign that your family, someone in your family lineage had slept with the devil. So
the devil's red hair.
Right. So, the devil famously has red hair.
Yeah. Madame Blanc seems to be in a genuine struggle about whether she should take advantage of Susie and enact a plan.
Yeah.
Or favour Susie and not put her through that. And eventually her love for Susie does win out. And that's, that is the maternal aspect to her. And it's that's what a mother's love for her daughter should be like.
Right.
And for her part, like you say, Susie had a terrible and abusive mother for her whole life. And is clearly drawn to Madame Blanc to fulfill that role. But the movie is about mothers using their power over their daughters generally, whatever form that might take, whether that's exercising religious dogma or exercising witch dogma, or just being dicks generally. It's only when Susie allows her mother to die that she's able to flourish and step away from that relationship. In a sense.
Well, yeah, it's when she literally kills her mother.
Yeah. Thematically, she steps away from that relationship. Literally, she kills her. There's also hints that there's a kind of sexual tension between Madame Blanc and Susie, though, I think.
Yes, definitely.
Which suggests perhaps that, I'm just filling in the blanks here. Killing your own mother off is required thematically to move on with a romantic relationship.
Okay. It's just replacing mother figure, isn't it? I think the sexual tension is probably more to do with Susie's burgeoning sexuality, isn't it? Is there a reference at some point to the fact that she's not had sex yet, I think?
Yeah. She says something like, I imagine it's what fucking's like.
Right. Yeah.
And her dancing becomes more and more sexual as the film progresses.
It's about the emancipation of women as well, isn't it? And women's changing role in society post-war.
And I guess she's killing off the religious aspects of it, where women traditionally are secondary citizens.
Yeah, and caregivers and all that sort of thing. I mean, pretty much all the characters in the film are women. Even the man is really a woman.
Yeah.
And witches are often historically they're feared because they are powerful women. This film shows that the women's power is absolute and completely out of the reach of men, most of whom are pathetic in this film.
Literally, the police are led around by their dicks.
Right, exactly. There's a scene where the police officers are stripped naked by the witches while they're in a trance and they're laughing at their genitals and things. There's a bit where it's implied, I think, that Dr. Klemperer didn't speak up really as his wife was taken to a concentration camp.
Right. So this is the thing. It's the old poem I didn't speak up when they came for my neighbour.
Yeah.
What about when they come for me, kind of thing.
Yeah. And
so is he Jewish?
I'm not sure.
She is.
His wife was, yeah.
So
I think he's Polish, wasn't he?
Right.
Or maybe they were both Polish. I don't really know.
There's some issue, right?
Yeah. But his wife was killed because she didn't have her naturalization forms,
Right.
or something like that. Anyway, I think the film is about reconstructing women's place in society after World War II, where because of the killing of millions of German men, women found themselves with more power and more influence in society.
Yeah.
But in this instance, it's the result of actual witchcraft.
Yeah.
Instead of just social, developments.
Yeah, but do you say you said that with a bit of a sneer? Do you find
In
it
what way?
because I think one criticism of the movie has been that women, that it suggests that women's power, if it goes unchecked, tends towards evil, tends towards violence.
That's not really what I. It's not even really what I think about the film, because I think Madame Blanc in this film is. I was going to say that she's mainly benevolent, but actually she kills Olga, doesn't she?
But only by accident, because she says like,
"Oh, it was more powerful than we thought."
Yeah.
Well, Susie is benevolent, I think, and is shown to be a kind presence by absolving Dr. Klemperer of his guilt.
Right.
I think that's another big theme, is like German post-war guilt.
Yeah.
And I think it's really in the era when that was all...
yeah.
And obviously there's a point at which one character literally says, when a woman tells you the truth, you say she's delusional, you should listen to women, which is hammering home
the point,
yeah. Rather inelegantly.
Every woman in the film tells the truth and is ignored. Because a woman
says that she's Madame Blanc.
That's true.
So she was a liar, although she does end up dead. So who knows, Joe?
Another theme is the abuse of power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So through the acts of the various mothers of all types, as well as like the kind of Nazi background through Dr. Kempler, there's an exploration of abuses of power.
Mm-hmm.
And the best way I've seen this written up is by Matt Goldberg for Collider. So I'll just read that out here. Guadagnino is repeatedly hitting on a world where power has been abused and those who feel no guilt or shame are running rampant. We see it in Klemperer's history as a Holocaust survivor. We see it in the current events that pop up in the news during the movie. And we see it inside the coven, where the older women who are supposed to be teaching and helping the students are instead preying on them. The movie isn't saying that powerful women are bad. It's saying that anyone who abuses their power to their own ends, rather than serving others, is perverting that power. And essentially, that's why Susie, at the end of the movie, tells Kempler that he doesn't need to feel shame. And she absolves him of that and, like, lets him forget.
Yeah.
I think those things we talked about, women and the abuses of power and motherhood and things, they're the clearer themes from the film.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few that like I noticed but I can't flesh out in my mind. I just don't understand how it ties up.
Yeah.
Like having Tilda Swinton play three people. But there's I think like the split decisions that underpin everything is interesting.
Yeah, there's certainly a theme of division.
Yeah. So like there's a power struggle between Madame Blanc and Mother Marcos. Susie talks about the split between the Mennonites and the Amish.
Yeah.
And Dr. Kempler is clearly split from his wife, and that's visualized with the like heart that's scratched into the wall, which is itself divided by the corner of the wall.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it's no accident that the movie takes place in a politically charged atmosphere where Germany is kind of reflecting on its national guilt and deciding between socialism
and not to mention the fact that the Tanz Academy faces the Berlin Wall, which is a giant dividing line through a city, and obviously at the time was a marker of extreme political division, wasn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think one other thing is the use of dance, which I think is really interesting, because it's sort of redesigned as a sort of ritualistic experience.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because the original Suspiria, despite being set in a ballet school, had about 20 seconds of ballet.
Right, exactly. There's barely any dancing, whereas everything in this film feels like it's based around the idea of it being a dance. So obviously all the dancing, but then even the violent scenes feel like a dance. The dance that they learn the choreography for and then perform in the giant pentagram is obviously some sort of like satanic witch ritual.
Down to the point where there's actually a pentagram on the floor.
Yeah. And then they even the way that death walks around the room, making people's heads explode, while other people do a sort of like strange, like bucking prayer sort of thing. It all feels very very choreographed, and a lot of the camera moves and some of the scenes feel choreographed, like they're a dance as well. For example, when we see the coven in the kitchen and they're all walking around telepathically communicating while they're making dinner, that feels a bit like a dance as well. So I think that's quite interesting, and I like that is a theme, that exists thematically.
Because it's form reflecting function, right? It's like the movie is about dance as much as it's about witches.
Yeah. And it also ties into the idea of women, having this power, because all the people in the dance school are women.
So the movie has some horror movie conventions, but really I think it's more of a like Dadaist, surrealist, like hodgepodge of just ideas, isn't it?
Yeah.
More is more with the final scenes where they're just lumping things in, and it's complete chaos, and then it's like you're just overwhelmed by it. But I think, to its credit, it's still coherent at that point. Like, it doesn't lose you. Like, it's still telling the story, even though it's just like, what the fuck is happening?
I think it did. It lost me at that point. It became so like stylist. It like boiled over in terms of its style, and I was basically laughing for the rest of the film because it was so absurd.
Yeah, like the tonal shift was weird.
Yeah, but then I wonder how much that is intentional, because I think it definitely has faults as a film, and it definitely has faults as a horror film, but I don't think those are I don't think the faults are the same.
Right, okay.
So, for example, as a film, while it's so visually striking and artistic, and for me it was, for the first 2/3, it was very compelling, I think it's really self-indulgent. All the stuff we were saying about Tilda Swinton earlier. It's overlong, it's overly verbose as well, and I think it's obsessed with its own thematic significance and the historical context that it's situated the film in, because there must be about a dozen instances of news reports about the Baader-Meinhof situation.
Hostage situation, right.
And all of that, as well as its artistic literacy, it hammers all of that home with a sort of general lack of any kind of subtlety, I think. And it is the product of a vision, but I just don't think the vision is as strong, visually, as Dario Argento's movie. And I think as a horror, it's interesting, and, like horrors that we often enjoy, sometimes explodes with this sort of graphic supernatural violence, which has the desired effect, because in the screening that we were in, people were reacting very strongly to, for example, Olga,
groaning and stuff.
Yeah, like that is unpleasant, and it works as an unpleasant scene. But I think there's just too much going on in the film for it to be truly scary on that sort of primal level that you so often get with horror movies. I think there's just too much to think about.
So earlier, I compared it with The Shining, and that could be argued to suffer from a similar thing, because it's not clear what's happening in The Shining.
But there is you can follow a through line if you ignore all of the thematic possibilities, I think.
But I think you can do that with this as well.
But I think from the point at which she walks in on the witch's ceremony, it is just so outlandish.
I don't understand what you don't get, mate. The literal incarnation of death rises out the floor and kills the false mother of the coven of witches, along with all her supporters, before descending back into the ground, so that the new Mother Suspiriorum can relinquish a Holocaust survivor of his guilt. I don't know what's so complicated.
Do you agree that there is a way in which that could have been staged to make it more coherent?
Yes. Yeah. But I don't know, I liked it. Which is surprising, considering last hour, when we did Suspiria, the original, I didn't like Heat's artistic flourishes, whereas
Yeah.
I do like it in this because I think it's contained to one scene, right?
Yeah, but then I think
But
that's almost frustrating because it feels affected, and I don't think it feels earned. Like it is out of nowhere, all that stuff. And so I think in that sense it's a bit frustrating as a viewer because, like, what the fuck are you supposed to make out of any of that?
It's not dissimilar to Annihilation though. Like the last 15 minutes of Annihilation is like, what is this? It's crazy.
Yeah, but I think there's the looming like presence of I'm trying to talk about it without any spoilers, basically.
Right,
but there's the theoretical possibility that there is a thing in Annihilation that is causing everything that's happened, and all the ending does is show you what the thing is, really. Like, it does it in a very stylistic way. It's not as absurd, I don't think, as Suspiria, because the screen doesn't turn blood red and it doesn't all move at like half frame shutter speed, and it's not just like shrieking noises and sound, and you don't have insert shots that are like ID photos of women shouting "Mother Marcos" before their heads explode.
But without spoiling anything in Annihilation, you do have a character like in a mirror battle.
But the format of the film doesn't change in Annihilation.
Of course it does.
No, it doesn't. Like the form of the film doesn't change. It's still shot from that objective viewpoint on the action. Even though it's a very surreal and very strange thing that's happening, you're still viewing it from essentially the same type of perspective that you have from everything else that's been happening in the film. Whereas in this, it turns into some sort of like bizarre mash of loads of different styles where you do have those weird insert shots, and you have the weird slow motion camera, and you have the scarlet red light, and all those like format things that just appear out of nowhere in the film, which has up until that point been pretty standardized in its form, I think. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. I guess it takes on the dream sequences. The style used in the dream sequences becomes more drawn out.
Yeah, that's true. There are some dream sequences which are, I guess something similar to the video in The Ring, or a sort of
that's exactly right.
Montage of sinister imagery.
All right. With all that said about Suspiria 2018, how would you survive it?
Well, I've just got one idea. I feel like I exsanguinated myself of survival ideas in the previous movie, perhaps. But this is something that I think we keep coming back to in various forms. Let's say you discovered that your friend had a strongly held belief that, for example, witches ran your dance academy.
Yeah. Then
your friend, in the course of her investigations, disappears, right? So you that adds weight to your belief that actually she might have been known what she's talking about.
Yeah.
Right. Is it wise to then shout to a room full of the people that she suspected that were witches, "You're all witches," in front of a load of witnesses, when you suspect your friend has already been disappeared for essentially the same thing?
Well, I'm glad you said that, because my first line is, don't argue with people you think might be witches.
Right, yes.
Advice for Olga.
Yeah.
She comes to a rather sticky end because she says, these people are witches. The best thing to do, now that I know that, is tell them that they are witches. Tell them I know they're witches, because that worked out so well for Patricia.
Exactly, yeah. It's basically like if in the previous Suspiria, Sarah had a friend who was like, I believe that razor wire is really painful to jump into without warning.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a silly
sound
move.
advice.
It's a silly move. From
It's
Olga.
like, it's the equivalent of like, you're in a room with a serial killer and you're like, I think you're a serial killer
yeah,
who kills people who accuse you of being a serial killer.
exactly. Yeah. It's like if someone tells you if you do this thing, then you might get killed for it, and then you do that thing.
Exactly. That's the purest form, yeah.
Yeah.
A equals B, do A.
Yeah. B happens.
Once you've established they're witches, this is my second point. Once you know that they're witches and you are Sarah, don't walk around in the dark looking for trouble.
Yeah.
You're like, well, these are witches. It turns out that she was right.
Do you think she suspects that Patricia's being held in the basement or something? Doesn't seem that way, does it?
She does say that to Dr.
Klemperer.
Yeah. Maybe they still have her.
Which they do in one form or another.
Yeah, and they just cut her guts out. That's fine.
Yeah. It's fine. It is fine.
I don't know what your problem is, mate. It's fine. I don't know what you're so worried about. It's all fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's very similar to the first point, isn't it? Just basically don't bring trouble upon yourself.
Yeah. Don't go looking for trouble.
Yeah. Because trouble will find you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any further thoughts?
No.
No, me neither. I mean, it's a pretty bonkers film, isn't it?
Yeah, a fine film. I think I won't ever watch it again.
Yeah, I think you said that. Is that you said, I bet you could pick up loads of stuff on a second watch, and I'm never going to watch it again.
There's never going to be a time in my life where I'm like, I need to rewatch the Suspiria remake.
Yeah, I've got 2.5 hours free.
Yeah,
and nothing better to do.
I want to watch Widows again. That was a good film.
That was a very good film. Widows. If you haven't seen Widows, go see Widows.
Why couldn't we have gone to see that again?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the remake of Widows.
Yeah,
because I think Widows is artistically bankrupt, and the only way to solve it.
So there.
Yes, that was Suspiria and Suspiria.
Yeah.
Which formed one episode in 2 parts of the How to Survive podcast.
After all that, though, like, we watched Suspiria twice now, in theory, and talked about it and researched it, and I don't feel any the wiser about it.
No,
It's
I know what you
impenetrable.
mean. It's a very strange film. Yeah.
Not like next week's film,
Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky's Black Swan.
Yeah, as dance season continues apace.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's very good.
I think it's my favourite movie about the perils of doing too much ballet.
Yes. If you haven't seen Black Swan, it is definitely well worth watching between now and next week when the episode will appear.
Yeah.
So if you've enjoyed the podcast, then why not email howtosurviveshow@gmail.com or tweet at howtosurvivepod. And while you're at it, why don't you leave a 5-star review if you like the podcast, because that really helps us build our audience.
Yeah.
Which is what it's all about.
5 stars for our
Yes.
German listeners.
Yes. Brilliant.
All right. Now, I hope you'll keep time with this.
Mm-hmm.
And first positions, everyone. Black Swan next week. See you then.